All right, Exiles, let's talk about it. What the heck is going on with Path of Exile with right now sitting at a very low score? Now, I don't believe Path of Exile is anywhere near like a mostly negative game. Usually games like that are something where like the microtransactions go wrong or something really went bad to have a mostly positive, then you're going all the way to mostly negative. That's a pretty big deal considering I have a lot of fun with Path of Exile. It's a great game. However, there are some issues that are absolutely needing to be addressed. And some of these will kind of show off via some memes here, but let's talk about it, man. So obviously a lot of players are upset. You can see if you go to the Steam page reviews, a lot of people are just downvoting the game, and for some reasons that are quite valid. But again, I don't think the game is like so bad that I wouldn't want to play it. But again, there are certain builds that were functioning, and then they just kind of swapped up things that required Grim Feast. Well, you're just out of luck. If you build relied on a high amount of mana and well, you kind of needed that big mana pool for your build to function properly. Well, it doesn't work anymore. There's a lot of builds that kind of just got like the short end of the stick. On top of making the whole game slower, players aren't happy with this at all. It actually is very similar to what has recently happened with Diablo 4 and Season 8. A lot of players said, we don't want this. And I think that these action RPG games, when they make you go back and restart from level 1, it definitely is kind of a slog to get through the game, right? You're just like, I just can't wait till I get to maps, right? Or in Diablo, it's like, can't wait to get to World Tier 4. That's kind of like the same feeling that I had with Path of Exile. I was like, I enjoy playing the new character, and I don't really mind the progression, but it takes too long to go through all the acts, and then you have to do all the acts again. I think that Path of Exile is in a kind of a different state, where Diablo kind of have this like end game system where you can just start out without having to do the campaign. With Path of Exile, you got to go through the entire campaign 2 times. Now, that'll be fixed later once we get the rest of the acts, but even for early access, I just feel like it's way too long. Now, there was like an interview where GGG was like, hey, okay, well, if you guys are feeling like the campaign's taking way too long, we'll just make the campaign more fun. I don't think they actually understand why players are so mad and upset about this. Even if they make the campaign more fun, right? You still have all these atlas points that you aren't going to be receiving till the end game. And if you want to get the best loot, well, you kind of need to juice up the maps. You need to go to higher tier content. And when you're going through the campaign, a lot of people have been reporting that they're just not getting loot, right? This is a really cool thing I want to open up with. It was just a meme. It made the game kind of way too hard. I genuinely feel it was untested. There was an interview by Zizaran that was talking to GG about how long does it take you to complete the campaign? Was what he was asking. I mean, like, well, I don't really, sit there and time. I don't know exactly how long. And the thing is that if they just played through one time, you could definitely tell the wisps were untested. Like in Act 1, I was getting wrecked by some just like monsters that got hit by the wisps. And this is just like funny little meme that I'll go ahead and open up with where like it's just showing you all these abilities that they want you to like kind of use at the same time. And PvE fans are like, yeah, and content creators are like, yeah, and then random white mob in the game because you can get deleted by just some random white mobs in the game. And you can see GG over and it's gonna start up over here pretty soon. But like, you just don't expect to get wrecked by like a random white mob, and the bosses are ridiculous. See, Warling Slash, you got all these combo-based abilities, right? Disengage. We want to go for the parry, get the frenzy charge, spear field, and then the and oh boom, just get one shot. It's like it. I don't think getting one shot is very fun in any video game, but like I kind of go into what people are kind of complaining about. It's like Wisp is a brand new mechanic, right? And then well, they're going to be super hard and make these unique monsters even stronger and therefore more rewarding, right? Right. So basically, yeah, you expect the monsters, if they're going to make this game harder, okay, you can slow our character down and make the game way harder, but then to make up for the time that it takes to fight these enemies, better loot would be the compensation. But if you don't give the players compensation, it's just like, the best way I can put it is like, would you go to work the next day knowing that you're going to make way less than you did before and it's going to be way harder? Obviously, you'd be like, no, I don't want to go. I'd find something else to play. And that's exactly what some players are doing. I've heard so many people quitting this game. Now, some people kind of over exaggerate, but like, people are very upset about this game, let's be real. But you can see the loot situation over here. This player is showing off after completing the campaign. The guy had no loot. Now, I want to say I had okay loot myself, but the thing with like any RNG, I mean, you could possibly get zero of everything. It's just how RNG works. But I think that loot could be looked at. I think that one thing that a lot of players feel frustrated by is just the lack of loot in the game, especially because you're going a lot slower. Now, again, this is just maybe one example here, but the guy he did not have loot. And this other player is talking about friction is what is killing the game. Um, this is one thing I really wanted to highlight on, and I wish that they would talk about this a little bit more in like one of the more recent like things. They did kind of update some of these, and there is some light at the end of this video. I'll talk about some cool things. But basically, friction is what's killing the game, is what this guy I mentioned. And you see a lot of people upvoting. I think this is one thing I just wanted to highlight from this post is chat-based trade friction is the most annoying thing. It's annoying for multiple reasons. You have price fixers. You also have people that literally never respond to your trade. It's like, well, can you just like in-game, if someone whispers to you, I wish there was like an in-game thing where you can click. There is a thing called overrule, but I wish there was a thing where you can just say, um, tell player I don't want to sell this item or just something, because it's like it's annoying whispering like 10 different people and because they don't respond, and then it's just not fun. Also, when you're trying to list your item, sometimes there's like a bunch of people that are price fixing the item, so you don't actually know how much it's worth. It basically is a trap for newer players, which is a really bad thing. But I think that they can do something with trade in the game for sure. And this other person was kind of complaining about like a campaign to tier 15 maps. That's the person's loot. Now, 20 exiles is pretty dang low. I would say they definitely need to look at the loot distribution, especially with like nulls and like all these other like forms of currency. They could be a little bit more generous with the loot drops for sure. The point of an action RPG is to get loot. That's what makes this game fun, not making the game way harder for less loot. I don't know if they actually changed the drop pool or not, but I would definitely say that less loot is definitely something that players wouldn't get excited to make a new character on, especially since these are leaks, they're going to reset. It's not like it's like here forever. You see this person over here saying lightning spear attacks Amazon spells. Yeah, spells got nerfed pretty hard, but also in general, like how it feels to play Amazon, unless you happen to have like a really good like build, um, unless you're playing like Rake or Lightning Spear, like all these little combos, it just feels like it's way too much effort to constantly sit there and piano. And it's weird because you look at some of the stuff from PoE 1 that like they're like, okay, we heard players they don't want to keep on pushing one of these flasks to upkeep all these buffs, which kind of tie into Path of Exile 2. If you look at the way it's designed to get all the buffs, you need to parry, you need to recently do a melee attack, and then recently do a projectile attack. They want you to attack like all these things. And I think players just want a smoother experience in their action RPGs. Keep in mind, a lot of people play video games when they come home from work, or they just want to relax, man. They're not like, they don't want to spam everything. Now, if you want to go ahead and play DDR on your keyboard, maybe you can make builds like that. I don't think that they should delete combo-based builds, but I'm saying that it ease the amount of, I guess, frustration with having to do all these combos after you then parry an enemy and do all these other things. You've got to do a melee attack, do a or whatever. You got to do a flip. Another thing I wanted to mention that I think could also be addressed, and I think it needs to exist in the game. So if you guys remember, Diablo 4 even made fun of themselves. They wore like shirts that said damage on Tuesdays. And this had to do with specifically like all of these abilities would have like some sort of condition where Path of Exile is literally having the same problems that Diablo 4 had in the earlier stages of the game, which is like, okay, so you have like, you can deal damage to enemies that are further away, or you can get extra lightning damage on your character after you've killed a shocked enemy. The problem is that when you run into a boss, a lot of these things where like when you would normally get a bonus on freeze, you can't really rely on getting that like frenzy charge when you freeze with one of like the auras. There's a lot of these things that just like make it an annoyance for the player that they have to overcome a hurdle, and then you get to the boss, and then it's like ZDPS. That is a very big issue, especially with players feeling like the bosses are too hard. I've had a lot of people come into my chat saying, "Hey, I can't beat the Act 2 boss." I'm not gonna lie, that Act 2 boss before like all these updates, it was a really hard boss fight. Now, for me, the first time fighting the boss, great. I've done it already though. Um, so I want to say that like the first time you fight some of these bosses, especially your first time going to campaign, it's exciting, it's fun. But once you've done it, it just feels like it has too much HP. It's just like, come on, just let me get to the end game. Which is something that they did talk about in one of their interviews. They said that they want to make the campaign more fun. Problem is that all of the good loot is tied to your little points that you get in your Atlas passives that like really can juice up the map to give you the better loot. So unless they just want to start like dropping divines, people aren't going to be like, yeah, man, the campaign is where it's at. Like, if you can guarantee the player maybe at every single act boss, like a major loot reward, like a guaranteed of at least one exalt. Okay, I'm not asking for like divines to fly from the sky from like every rare or elite monster, but I think there could be a little bit more consistency on the act bosses. In fact, in the earlier stages of PoE 2, you would get a lot of exalts from like the boss. I think just adding a little bit more in the campaign would help out players a lot, because again, people are quitting because of this. You see this over here. Tell me the truth. I'm ready to hear it, players. I hate combo based. They're like, no. Because I feel bad for GGG because they design these things right to work well with each other. Like you want to parry, then you want to get this frenzy charge, then you want to go ahead and make sure you use a melee and a projectile, so then your ability gets all these buffs. But then like it's just too much, and people just don't want to do it. They want to play these games to relax. And then on top of that, also this person was like going back to my hurting ground map. So like there are a lot of frustrations that exist in the game still, and I think that they could really look at addressing these because right now, obviously, any game developer or creator is looking at their game like, okay, mostly negative, people are upset. QE2 is just so much slower. Burning around is really annoying to play an energy shield based build because you don't get that kind of recharge, right? Like it's just like all these things that are annoying. And I get it. You're making the map way harder. Players are cursed with temp chains, and then the monsters move faster. And this has been a topic for like a really long time. Is like the game is designed for like the monster to be in PoE1, where they just rush at you, go crazy fast, and then like in PoE2, your character is a lot slower in general. It almost feels like you're walking through quicksand, unless you have like that 200% movement speed. Like the game feels really, really slow overall. Like especially when you're traversing from area to area. But like when you get bad map mods, you can't really like reroll. Like in PoE1, it's like okay, whatever, I can scour an axe until I get like mods that I'm like, okay, sure, I can go ahead and mess around with it. But I'll tell you for sure, after doing the campaign on my rich list and just I get some background gameplay on my Amazon now. Oh man, dude, doing the campaign is so slow already. And then you get to the end game, you're like, okay, I got temp change, the monster's moving faster. It's like it feels really bad and awkward. But a lot of people are saying because of the lack of loot, they just don't even want to play the game. And I've seen this again in a game where players are saying like, I don't really want to play this game because I'm not getting my loot. We play these games to get loot. So they need to buff up, I would say, like the ratio of these loot drops, especially for the earlier game, because I feel like a lot of players that jump from other action RPGs, specifically it's like Diablo, they hop into this game and they're just like, dude, I'm not getting anything. And I think that coming from Diablo is a very, very big difference. If you come from Diablo 2, it's not so bad. Most people are coming from Diablo 4 going to this, and they're like, where's my loot? And even in Season 8 PTR, people were complaining, like, dude, there's just not enough loot in the game. And yeah, I don't know why action RPGs are kind of moving in this direction, but hey, the reality is that's what it's looking like right now. Now, another annoyance is like the go to this website to go get RMT, man. It's kind of annoying, and they need to specifically kind of deal with the spam marino of these. Like it does get quite annoying, but also like in general, like when you're opening up the trade chat, I wish that it would be able to be accessible for newer players to trade and interact, not go to basically Path of Exile trade website. Then you gotta log in, then you gotta go ahead and invite them to the party, and they just never respond. In general, like trading in this game, that's why people RMT. These people have to buy new accounts all the time because they get banned, believe me. But they also just come back because they're making so much money. And why are they making so much money? Because people don't want to deal with the frustrations of trading in this game, so they just go ahead and buy and they just RMT. So there's a reason why. Let's do this thing. This person complained about temp chains, but man, I hate this thing too. I think in general, the game just needs to be a lot smoother for the campaign. But like, dude, imagine getting temp chained in the campaign. Okay, this is another thing I want to mention. I'm gonna go show off this boss fight. So, or this, it's just two elites, but basically, one of them had right proximity. Proximal tangibility. Another one had all damage chills, and I'm playing a ranged build, so I have to get within melee range. It almost feels like I'm playing for the monster versus playing for my build, if that makes any sense. This is another like topic that I think that I haven't really seen people talk about. But when you're trying to build your character, you're trying to build your character in your fantasy. I have to play in melee range, right? Where if I get all this damage to distance targets, well, when the monster has this mod, I have to play for the monster. That is another point of like frustration. I think some people may not understand until like it actually happens, and it's just an annoyance that exists in the game that people don't want to see. But this person says, thanks, GGG. And it's kind of memeing on him, but it's saying that, like, we hear your suggestions, we'll take them into consideration. But obviously, well, they're not really listening because, well, the headphones aren't on the ears. Because there's a few points over here, specifically with like Grim Feast and all the older legacy builds. You have to realize some people, they never want to play seasons. They just want to play the standard legacy, whatever you want to call it. But they don't really want to play. And keep in mind, this game's in early access. It'd be really cool if you at least make those builds able to function still, because there's so many Stormreaver builds that just got deleted, right? And I think that instead of making the game way harder for everyone to get like less rewards, why not just have keep the game the way it was and make some new forms of content, and you can make that new form of content your vision of making it way harder, and I think people will be more accepting of it versus making it harder to get less loot, because that's the same thing that Diablo 4 has done, and they have received a ton of feedback, and I hope Diablo 4 and Path of Exile can both understand if you want to make your game harder, right? you need to give the player better loot. You can't just make the game harder and give them less loot because it takes more time to kill these bosses. Some of these bosses, especially like the campaign ones, have so much HP. It is like very disproportionate to the way that the game is played while you're going and getting to the boss fight. But I want to go ahead and actually answer the question: is the game actually really bad? Is it a 3 or a 4 out of 10? Because once it hits like a 30%, like that's where it goes into mostly negative. No, absolutely not. But I get the frustration. It is very not fun to be able to go ahead and play your game in a certain way, and then you come back and it just feels like a completely different game. It's just way too much to slog. I mean, this is just me playing the campaign on my Amazon right now. And I also want to say that the Ritualist needs some massive buffs. The whole like getting the headhunter effects, dude, it's way too sluggish, way too slow. It almost again feels like it's not necessarily tested enough because you know Amazon, you get that crit. Oh man, it's fantastic. It scales as you progress too, which is not the same with the Ritualist at all. But nonetheless, like I'm having to go backtrack too much, I think, in the campaign. And then I know in an interview they said, well, we'll just make the campaign more fun. And they have finally kind of listened. They're going to go to short some of the areas, and they released some like blog posts, and they've been talking about it, which is a good thing. And I want to go ahead and actually kind of mention one of the things. I know it's kind of small, but obviously you can go to the like upcoming changes page to make it fit in here. There's a lot of text. The bottom line is they're going to make it so it's easier to find the rares and the enemies. So basically, you can find, instead of looking and playing hide and seek for the gold skulls, they're going to make that a lot smoother. Awesome. Love that change. That's great. And then they mentioned some of the different areas. They're just making some of the areas smaller. But again, that doesn't really make the game more fun. The thing that gets people fun is the loot. And that's why people don't really like to play action RPGs in the earlier stage of the game, with the exception of the first time they go through the campaign. I'm sure for the most part, people are okay with the campaign being a little bit slower. It's like your first time experiencing, so it's everything's new. But when you have to do this again every single season, and imagine the people that want to play like 4 or 5 characters. Man, I hate doing it on PoE 2. PoE 1, I actually don't mind the campaign as much because PoE 2 is backtracking simulator, and I don't even think waypoints would really solve it because it's more so the idea of like, dude, I gotta go all the way back. I gotta find which waypoint am I gotta go click on. Oh, there's not a waypoint where I need to go. This is kind of the closest one. All right, let's go over here. It's just way too slow. I think the base movement speed would be really good, and like they are like buffing the sword specifically, but I think overall, even though they're buffing it, it's not nowhere near where it used to be specifically. And then they changed some of the hunter stuff. But speaking of hunters, man, like some of the things where it requires you to like freeze, you get like the frenzy charge, or it's like you can electrocute. Um, some of these things just don't work against bosses because these buffs only last for a very short amount of time, and you have to like kill a target or freeze a target. And if the boss doesn't spawn ads, well, you're just simply out of luck. That's personally the way I see it. I'm curious to know how you guys feel about some of these points over here. Again, what I got out of this was like, okay, they're shortening some of the areas up. I wish they would say finding more rare items would be available because when I played through my ritualist, I'm not even kidding. When I unlocked my second, like, or my additional ring slot, I was about to say that secondary, like, left ring, if that makes sense, because you get another ring slot above another ring. But basically, I still had to play a blue ring because the loop was so dry. Like, I just wasn't getting any good items. And that's just in the RNG luck. Also, so to kind of sum up why players are super mad, we need better loot, maybe a little bit more consistency on the drop too. I'm not asking for like godly items, but like while I'm going through the campaign, I shouldn't have blue keys, man. When I'm completing some of the acts, I don't think it's out of the question to have some rare items. You can have blue items still be good in your game. Diablo 2 actually did that really well. I think that in general the campaign needs to be less slog. And then as far as combos go, I feel like people just don't want to play it. And it kind of sucks because they put so much time in designing these things. But I know for sure, because I upload lots of build guide, the builds that have like all these stats, people don't like to play. They just want to have the 1 damage button, which is sad because PoE 2 wanted to make the game where you could have multiple skills. And I think that's cool. You have the weapon swap and stuff. But the reality is people just want to play the way they want to play. You don't really need to reinvent the wheel by having like 5 of these skills, like your main DPS things, and you have to activate X, Y, and Z. If you want to do maybe like 2, I think that that's kind of where a lot of people are like, hey, you can kind of do that. But they also nerf a lot of like the curses and stuff, like all the things that would give you the ability to get like all these steps that would help out, like the verses. They kind of like nerfed them as well. So it just feels bad. Overall, I want to say that the game is not in the greatest state. However, I still personally am enjoying the game and having fun. I don't think it's a 3 or a 4 out of 10. I don't think it deserves a mostly negative score overall. But I think that it makes sense that people are giving it a mostly negative review or downvoting the game because they really want grinding your games to fix the game. And I think that it is great that they are still kind of being active because some game companies out there, you complain about the game, they're just like, I don't know, man. Well, they're just internally, they're gonna fix it later, but at the same time, they just kind of go dark. So I want to say that it's good that we have this communication, and it's good that they know kind of what to fix. Another thing I want to point out really quick, and this is almost a subject for another video, armor needs to be looked at for sure. I feel like armor isn't necessarily as good as evasion. Well, Energy Shield used to be amazing with Grim Feast, but also I think we need to put Grim Feast back. And I know they said they're going to be putting it back soon. I don't know what that means soon. Like, you could take away the overcharge, that's fine. But, like, you need a consistent way for the shield to recharge, because even if you get recharge rate, there's so many of these, like, degens on the ground and, like, all these things, like Burning Ground, for example, like, really hinder the ability to kind of recover these things. But there's a lot of issues with the game. But again, I don't think it's really, like, again, a 3 or 4 out of 10, but I get why people are doing it. But you guys can let me know how you feel about it after we recently kind of talked about why everyone was kind of upset about the game. And players are still more upset about the game because I really feel like Grinding Your Gears may not understand like certain viewpoints that some of the players have. Again, with like the reason why people don't like doing the campaign is because they're not getting loot, and then they're just like, we'll make the campaign more fun. So hopefully in the future we'll see another update from them. But till then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. And overall, to kind of answer your guys' question, as I've been kind of live streaming here, I'm still traveling, so setup kind of ghetto here with some of the connection and stuff. But uh, overall, I'm still having fun with the game. I genuinely like it. And if you guys are having any problems with your character's progression stuff, make sure you guys engage in like a trade league. It just makes your experience much smoother if you just go get 1 or 2 exalts, slap in whatever weapons have you're going, sorted by DPS. Make sure you also check the level requirements. Equip that in your gameplay. I promise you will be way, way, way smoother. The main thing that's making it so frustrating, honestly, is that your weapons, unless you get really lucky in the campaign, you're honestly not going to get high physical percent, and then also like the flat physical number. Those are the 2 key things that I think really make the players really frustrating when they actually play the game. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up my thoughts. You guys can let me know yours down below. Peace out. I'll catch you guys in the next one.